Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the seasonal recap show. We're finally moving on to the summer season stuff. Hopefully, everything's finished by now. A lot of broadcasts got delayed by the Olympics and stuff. I think the new Love Live is still going, and I think that pirate show is still going. The one that's not One Piece, obviously. But so we got about 30 shows to try out for this season. Got some that are still two cores. So we're not going to bother with those yet. We're going to go by random number rules this time. Got random number generator pulled up here. Pull that over. I fucking hate this thing. There we go. But yeah, so yeah, this is how it normally works with me. The last time I did the seasonal recap stuff was I was already like halfway through finishing stuff. Now you get to see me watch the really bad shit. The stuff that's just fucking awful that I drop after like one episode. We'll see how it goes though. So let's take a journey over to the random number generator and see what we get. 10. What is 10? Remain. I have no idea what this is. Wait, is this the... No, this isn't the... I've heard this one. Alright, well, let's jump into it. Let's watch Remain. You ever wondered what Free would be like if it was ugly? That's basically Remain. Yeah, that was not good. So this is the water polo one that people were talking about. This is like, so Mappa has like two sides to them at this point. There's the high profile, we're gonna fucking blow people away with this shit kind of shows like Jujutsu Kaisen and Yuri on Ice, the upcoming Chainsaw Man anime. And then they have the production committee made us make this something or whatever, or what, just the absolute garbage tier shows. Like, if anyone remembers Listeners from a little while ago, yeah, this is definitely in the latter camp. This is I fucking hate the character designs in this show. It is ugly. It's no, nuh-uh. I thought the premise was interesting. Water polo star for junior high gets in an accident and loses all of his water polo memories and basically has to start from scratch. That's kind of a cool premise. The guy isn't very interesting, but I like the premise. And the dialogue is just so bloated with shit. Like, there's this scene where he, like, gets home after rehab and he just starts introducing his shop to us. I'm like, why the fuck do I care about this? What? Why? What's going on here? So, yeah, it's ugly and the script is not great. That's really all I have to say. I don't think I'm losing out on anything by skipping over it. Next. Alright, we are gonna take Remain off the list and, come on, fucker, and move forward. Oh, two notes I want to add. I'm going to save Dragon Maid for last, just because I want to end on a high note. So I'm just going to take that out of the number rotation. And if something is not finished airing, like Love Live or Fina or whatever, I'm just going to re-roll to get something else. So anyway, let's see who we get next. 18. The Dungeon of Black Company. Mayq Black Company, I believe that one's called. Is that one finished? Let me just check and make sure. Yeah, it's finished. So let's give it a go. Well, it sure didn't take very long for us to get to the first isekai of the season. Yay! I feel like I need like a bell or something to ring every time I hit a fucking isekai, because I feel like that trend still isn't going away. Now, I don't dislike isekai as a concept. There's a lot of isekai that I really like. I'm really looking forward to the second season of Mushoku Tensei. Um, Looking forward to Slime season 2 part 2 is on this list. I'm looking forward to that. So there are a lot of isekai that I like, but this one's just super mid. Um, it's got there's a particular aesthetic style art or slash art direction in terms of character designs that I'm not a super huge fan of, and this is a very uh, blatant example of it. I don't quite have the words to describe it exactly, but it reminds me of Hinamatsuri, but Hinamatsuri is the only one that I've seen do that style well, where it's like there's a lot of post production that tries to make it look really good in terms of like there's two different kinds of post production, at least in my let me rephrase that. There's two different kinds of bad post production. There's post production where it tries to make everything all shiny and glistening to cover up the fact that it looks like shit. That one harem anime about the online gaming is a good example of that. Not the one about the office, not the one about the guy and the girl playing gender swapped characters. Not that one. That one actually looked okay. The other harem anime about on net gaming or whatever, I don't fucking remember the name of it. I don't expect you to remember it, but that's a good example of it where it just looks super shiny and glistening. But this show, Black Company, is the other kind where it looks a little grittier. Everything looks intentionally flatter. Again, it's kind of like, it reminds me a bit of Hinamatsuri. I guess maybe Taboo Tattoo comes to mind as well, just in terms of the art direction and stuff. The point is, it's covering up a shitty looking anime. And I thought that the main character is interesting. Like, he basically worked his ass off for, like, till he was 24 to basically become a real estate mogul, basically, just so that he could be a NEET and sit inside all day. Interesting concept. Although I will tell you, you don't get to just sit and do nothing once you get to that level of real estate. There is shit you still have to do. But in any case, he gets isekai'd anyway, right as soon as he achieves that, and he has to be a fucking, like, basically a slave laborer. Made some really fucking shitty business decisions, to be honest, that got him into that situation, which doesn't really track with the fact that he's a super successful real estate guy. So, doesn't make sense. And the part that made me just turn it off was where he basically said, fuck unions, basically. Like, he was equated people who join unions to, like, work. Now, he doesn't specifically say this. He's the way he says it is like weaklings who clump together, yada yada. But the image that plays over his dialogue is essentially like a strike, like a workers' strike. So I'm like, okay, well, fuck this dude. Maybe there's a turn later, but this show is so fucking boring in general that I just don't care. So, next one. Alright, we're gonna take Black Company off the list. Let's head on over to the randomizer. Pump this down a bit. And what's the next lucky number? 12. The Duke of Death and his Maid. This one sounded kind of interesting, but it also might be CG. I'm not entirely sure. So let's jump into it. Yeah, no. surprisingly, the CG was not the worst part of this episode. Instead, it was the humor and the story. Because, okay, I know it's anime and it's also fantasy, so I'm very much able to separate reality from fiction. But the main female lead in this show is just straight up sexually harassing the main character nonstop throughout this whole fucking episode. And it's not funny. Like, it's not. She's not doing it in interesting ways or anything. It's just not. It's just straight up sexual harassment. And it's just not funny. Also, I need to figure out the age of these two characters because the way it's presented is especially yikes because it looks like it's in a slightly older woman and a boy who is not of age yet. Swap the genders on this and realize how fucking creepy that would be. But more so than the creepiness, it's just not funny. Like, the joke is, I am sexually harassing you, and it's just not funny. And the animation's not great. It's full CG, but it's from the director of High Score Girl, which I really like. High Score Girl was one of my favorite shows of the year that it aired. So I was hoping the director would pull out some interesting stuff. And it's just not super interesting to look at most of the time. It is. There are some interesting pieces of cinematography, how he plays with darkness and stuff. And whenever he breaks away from the full CG stuff to do more artsy kind of stuff, it looks a little more interesting, but doesn't make up for the dog shit script. Like, this is just not funny. It's not funny. And it's not endearing either. So, drop. Alright, Duke of Death is coming off. Pull up ye old randomizer. Am I already down to 26? Yep. I'm just blazing through these now. So let's see what the next one is. 13. Spirit Chronicles. I have not heard good things about this, but let's give it a whirl. Oh my god, that opening scene was so fucking dog shit. That's the funniest thing I've seen all day. And I've watched actual comedy anime today. That was fucking hilarious. Oh, it was so bad. Oh my god. Oh, that was dog shit. That was so bad. Okay, so I encourage you to watch this opening scene up until the OP plays just because of that. I'm not going to tell you what happens, but I will tell you this is an isekai anime. So, ding. I need a bell. But, after the OP, it was just onto the usual vapid isekai generic shit. There was potential in the main character wrestling with, I guess you would call it, I think this one's technically called Tensei Isekai, where it's basically resurrection isekai, kind of. It's like, it's in the Mushoku Tensei vein of isekai in terms of how he gets to the other world. But the main character is like grappling with, is he the guy from the previous world, or is he the guy who was born into this world? That was the one interesting concept, but otherwise, it was just totally vapid and uninteresting. Totally boring dialogue. Uninteresting character designs. The backstory with this isekai world character is like so sloppily delivered, even though it's just kind of, it evokes no empathy from me. I'm very glad I saw that opening scene, but otherwise this is garbo. Let's move on. All right, we can get rid of that one. That was a barrel of laughs. Let's re-roll and see what we come up with. We're down to 25 shows now. Well, plus Maid Dragon. Well, in any case, we're making some pretty decent progress. Let's see what's next. 14. Cheat Pharmacist Slow Life. Great. Another isekai. Here we go. Well, I've never seen an isekai just skip the isekaiing part before, but here we are. It's got that going for it, I guess. This fucking sucks, man. It's ugly as shit, and it's so fucking boring. Did anyone think this was gonna be good? Was anyone excited for the farm? Well, actually, no, I wasn't. Was anyone excited for the pharmacy show in the other world? Didn't we just have a show like this last season? Like the Saints' Magic is Omnipotent. Wasn't this basically what that show was? But that one was at least slightly more interesting because it had a cute girl as the protagonist. This sucks. And now granted I did make it all the way through this episode, so they probably flashed back to the isekaiing part at some point, but like it just leads in with like former corporate drone. I'm like, cool. That means fucking nothing to me. Because there's 87,000 different main characters in anime that were former corporate drones. It's not fucking new. Tell me why I should care about this person specifically. You can't just throw a concept at me and expect me to empathize with it. I need empathy. I need this. This sucks. Next. Alright, let's get rid of that. Let's see what else is next. Crank it down. What do we got next? 13. ReSlime Season 2 Part 2. Okay, I'm actually probably going to finish this one, actually. Fucking finally. Let's go. Alright, just finished the second half of ReSlime Season 2, and it's still good. It is still a very fun series, but I do have to admit, this is probably my least favorite, like, TV installment so far, like, not counting any of the OVAs or anything. Like, there has been a very slight but steady progression downwards since the first season, in my opinion. We'll get into why I think that, but the first half of this season, or the first half of this second half, so like episodes 1 through 6 of Season 2 Part 2, I really liked a lot. I know a lot of people were kind of bored with it, but just again, I don't watch stuff seasonally, so the length of stuff doesn't really, or the amount of time that it takes for something to happen doesn't really interest me, or doesn't really bother me, I should say, as long as what's happening is interesting. And I found the different negotiations and political talks amongst all the different rulers to be very fascinating. I think this is one of Slime's better strengths, is it can make sitting around and talking sound really interesting. Now, granted, it wasn't particularly interesting to look at it's still got it's still a really polished looking series in terms of just general animation and stuff. But what I mean by that is I mean, people have said it already. It's a lot of it is just panning shots and stills, which again, I'm not super hard on or I'm not super critical of, to be honest. Um, yes, I wish there was a bit more to it, and I definitely did notice it a lot more in this season than previous entries. But it's a minor complaint for me in the grand scheme of things. People said the same thing about like later seasons of Food Wars, and I'm like, honestly, I didn't even notice just because I was so wrapped up in the story. And the same thing with Slime. I was so captivated by how they were telling the story verbally and the actual pacing of it that I didn't super mind the slight cinematography downgrade. At least in the first half. Second half definitely kicks it up a bit. But we'll get there when we get there. Veldora being back in action as a main character, I thought I was going to dislike him as a character just because he seemed a little one note in how Rimuru acted with him. But he fucking steals the show in this season, especially in the second half. He's just so fucking... In the second half, he's just like fucking copying like anime and game character attacks when he's fighting. Like, he does the fucking Hadouken, he does the Kamehameha. It's so... The show is so fun. It's... That is one of the things I really like about Slime in comparison to other isekai. Like, even though it does have a lot of serious moments, the general vibe of it is that it is fun. That is one of the things that really interests me about Slime as a whole. It sort of presents this idea of this is what you should do if you are an all-powerful being. If you have all the power that you could possibly want, this is what you should be doing. Like, that's what Rimuru kind of embodies as a character. And I find that really interesting. Although it does lead to the stakes not being quite as thrilling. And that's where the second half of the series comes in, where I was not vibing with it quite as much. Especially episodes 7 through 9, where it's basically Rimuru's soldiers fighting Clayman's soldiers. I sort of knew I had a feeling this was what the structure of this season was going to be, where the first half was all build up and set up, and then the second half was all execution. But there was just... I have two problems with episodes 7 through 9 where all the different side characters are fighting. The first is there's really no tension at all. Like, that's kind of the general vibe of Slime as a whole. And like with Rimuru, I get it because he's basically a god. He's a demon lord at this point. But it also sort of extends that mentality to his legion of characters, his legion of followers as well, which is less interesting to me. Like, I think they're fun. I think they're very fun characters that I like seeing, like Shion and Benimaru and all of them, and Gobta. But in terms of action characters, they are really not that interesting. So when you have a whole 3-episode block of time dedicated just to them fighting, it feels like a slog. And the other thing that bothered me about these episodes is the powers... I'm not going to use that word. The powers of the characters... Fuck it. I'll say it. The power scaling in this doesn't make any fucking sense anymore. I hate using that word because it's like my least... It's the thing that I find the least interesting about a show. But the way they job certain characters, the way they build up other characters, like it none of it makes sense in terms of like what you're expecting to happen. Like it's like it sets up it'll set up like one character is way more powerful than this character. But then it sets up that this other character is more powerful than that second character, but it also sets up that that character would lose to the first character. And it's just talking about this in broad power terms. It's not talking about specific weaknesses or anything. Like it just is not very solid. And again, with all the other stuff happening in Slime, normally I would have just brushed this off, but it's because there's so much time in a row dedicated to it that I found it to be a bit irksome. So that was definitely the low point of the season for me, where I was just like, I really couldn't care less. But then the last stretch of episodes, 10 to 12, where Rimuru is basically in a war council with the other demon lords and is basically trying to prove himself that he is worthy of this title, that was a lot more interesting. Although again, Clayman as a villain, I like some things. I like some other things. The reveal that this is gonna be. I forgot to mention, if you haven't watched this series of videos from me before, this is all gonna be spoiler talk. So don't watch this if you don't want to be spoiled. So sorry you made it this far into the video without knowing that, but more spoilers from here. So like the reveal that Clayman is actually kind of super weak, at least in comparison to everyone else. I like it, and I also don't like it. Like, thematically, it makes sense. Like, this is just some guy who was propped up as a demon lord by someone else. Like, he's just a puppet for someone else to exert influence. Like, even amongst all of the Harlequin troupe people, he is considered the weakest. But I also don't like it in terms of he's just not fun to see fight. Because again, he fights for a whole 2 episodes, basically. Or again, episode and a half or so. So it's give and take with that one. So it was interesting. I'll give it that much. And also the fucking fights in the back half of in this final quarter of this season, were fucking great. Just peak slime action animation. Rimuru just looks consistently awesome throughout. It is good shit. It is good shit. Also, I forgot how pretty Rimuru is. Yeah, love that little slime baby. I think that's about all I have to say on this one. Yeah, it was good. Could have been better. And I hope if we get more seasons in the future, I don't know if they've announced anymore. I don't think they have. But it did have a to be continued at the end of the season, so hopefully they will come eventually. But I think this one's also starting to feel, even Slime now, as great a show as this has looked consistently in the past, even now Slime it looks like it's starting to feel the wear and tear of the overburdened anime industry, which sucks. So hopefully when it comes back, it will have a very strong schedule throughout its run. I would certainly like to see that. But yeah, Slime good. Alright, now, if you've seen previous videos, this would normally be the point where I would take this out of the list and then scroll up to this list up here, my rankings for the year, and then I would put it somewhere. But since this is the second half of a season that's already aired, I'm just going to group both of these together. So we're just going to take part 2 out of here. And unfortunately, ReSlime gets moved down a bit. Ironically, right under Slime Diaries is where I'm going to put it. And we're going to change that so that it's for the summer season. And there we go. Yeah, yeah. Wish it could have been better, but a bit of a dip off in that. So, such is.